Now I can move. Now I can move. Um, and uh, I've had kind of a weird journey, and I don't want to. I'm glad we've got 2 hours. I don't want to talk about myself, but I need to tell you some things about myself so that you'll understand how I arrived at this concept of practical evangelism, which is really nothing new. It's just a new way of looking at some very old truths of the Scripture. As far as most recently and how I'm connected with Student Venture and Karen and Monty and all those folks is I knew that I was going to be in ministry my whole life. I got saved at age 5. This makes me sound like I'm running for president, but it was in a log cabin in North Carolina. My uncle was a pastor, and I gave my heart to Jesus as best as a 5-year-old can. And early on, I knew that I was going to be in ministry somehow. I remember shortly after giving my heart to Jesus, we had a sleepover with four little guys. And we're all sleeping in our sleeping bags on the floor. And the lady of the house comes by, and she says to each kid, "Did you say your prayers tonight?" "Yes, Mrs. Wilson." "Did you say your prayers tonight?" "Yes, Mrs. Wilson." And she finally comes to me, and she says, "Marty, did you say your prayers?" And I said, "Nope." And she says, "What do you mean, nope?" I said, "Well, I'm having church." Now, this is a 5-year-old kid, right? She says, "What do you mean you're having church?" I says, "Well, I'm laying here in bed, and I pray, and then I sing a song, and then I take an offering," which is really weird, because you're in a sleeping bag, and I take an offering, and then I preach a sermon. She says, "Oh, that's really interesting." Now, that's a 5-year-old kid who doesn't understand vision, doesn't understand calling, and yet, in a way, I kind of know, looking into the future, that I'm going to go into ministry, right? It's kind of a weird thing. Ended up being involved in church all my life. I went to Point Loma Nazarene College. Then I went to Fuller Seminary. And I did youth ministry for about 15 years. And then things began to change. And this is how this leads into the whole idea of practical evangelism. I was really uncomfortable with the idea of I'm the youth pastor of this group of kids at our church, and everything we're doing is about trying to get people to come to our youth group. We had a concert, we had a camp, and everything that we did was about trying to get people to come to our church. And yet the more and more I read the gospel, it was all about the church going. Not about getting people to come, but the church going. And so I started doing more and more things with the people in my youth group outside of our local church. We started going to the parks, and we started going to the beaches, and we started just trying to find ways to reach out. I have to admit, I got discouraged. The church people didn't like me taking their junior hires and